What's up, everyone? This is Alex Quin, and you're listening to another episode of the Hustle Inspires Hustle podcast. Today, we have not one, but two incredibly talented guests joining us. Jamila Hache, a versatile actress, a singer, and songwriter, has made her mark on projects like Till Jail Do Us Part on Peacock and Mariposa de Barrio on Telemundo. Now, alongside her is her husband and co-founder, Daniel Rojas, a seasoned music composer and sound engineer. They're venturing into the tech world with a groundbreaking app called Rafy. Did I get that right? Rafy?
Yes, Rafy, right there.
Alrighty, what's going on, y'all?
Good,
Oh,
good.
thank you for having us.
Of course. So you're both in LA, but in different places or the same place?
Right now in different
Just
places.
separate, but,
I was
but we
about to
do
ask
live
you across
together.
the hall.
No, we're like 10 minutes away.
Yes.
Cool. So guys, I'm so happy to have you on. Margot team is family, so it's really cool to have you guys on the podcast. Talk to me all about Rafy. What's going on?
Well, yeah, Rafy is a self-taping tool for actors to do auditions with. Back in the day, we used to go into rooms and have readers, but that's not the case anymore. So Rafy is the alternative to that.
Break down for me, readers. Like, break down for me how it was back then, as if I
So
knew nothing about the industry.
you got it. So back then, we used to go in person, and then we would be in a casting room with a casting director. And then a reader is a person who reads all the other lines that do not belong to your character. Because when we audition with a scene, and a scene is a dialogue between two or more people. So if I'm one, I need a reader to read all the other characters that are part of that scene with me, so I
Right.
can be seen. So before we used to go into rooms and a reader would be there reading the other lines, giving me that sort of like, back and forth so I could have my dialogue and present my scene.
Nice. Okay. So now walk me through the app, how it changes that.
So nowadays we don't have to go into rooms anymore. We do everything in our homes. So we have a home setup. And that happened because of COVID, but also before COVID, this was sort of like starting.
Yeah.
So now that's the new norm. Self-taping is self-taping. You do the tape on your own by yourself. So we always have to find that person that can help us read. Everything else we have, but that person. And Danny was my reader. So I don't know, Danny, if you want to jump in and say something about it.
No, that's exactly it. So, I mean, everything else, actors have already figured out their setups at home. So they have a backdrop, they have a camera, they have lighting, which used to be things that were provided to the actor when they
Right.
went to casting agencies. But since that has disappeared, and in fact, I had neighbors that were casting offices that had 12, 13 rooms for people to do castings. And it's now a catering service. Like it's something that has really dramatically changed, especially after COVID, because everybody got used to getting tapes sent to them. And for casting directors and studios, is much quicker because if you schedule people, even if you do every 5 minutes, it's only 12 per hour. Whereas if you have self tapes in 1 hour, you can review 50 tapes if you want, because you just watch a minute of it and keep going. There's nothing holding you from that. So it's speed up the process. And for the actors, there's pros and cons, but one of the pros is they don't have to be in LA anymore. A lot of actors have moved all over the place, or even if they're auditioning for something in Miami, they can be in New York or vice versa. Like it's location doesn't matter as much for the taping process, for the auditioning process.
I was
Which
about to go there. Sorry to cut you off because I was like, all right, so if you could do it from home, that means you don't have to be traveling around, which means that maybe you have a lot more opportunity now. But I'm guessing there are some cons that come with that. Can we talk a little bit about the cons?
Yes, absolutely. So I guess it's the energy of the room.
Yeah.
You're sort of sending your tape into, I always say, like a black hole because I'm sending it, but I don't know who's receiving it. I don't know if they're watching it. I don't know, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Versus going into the room, you do see the casting director there. Sometimes producers go in. So there is this like face to face that has value. But yeah, if you really think about it, I guess doing it from home is much more convenient because now actors, we can actually have other jobs, which before was a little bit of an issue because you needed to have a really nice boss to let you walk out in the middle of the day because you had an audition. Now you just kind of have to, you kind of do it when you're home.
How was the change from, working as talent to then starting a tech company?
Well, I haven't really left the industry, so I'm still acting. So
Okay.
it's and I think the app can only get better if I continue doing this. So I'm
Give it
sort of like
feedback. Yeah.
correct. I'm in tune with the needs. I'm in the field. I get the scripts. I see what's, I can tell my team like, oh, we need to implement this because now scripts are coming like this, or I got this weird, strange situation that was not like that before, but that's like the new norm now. Like, for example, there's a lot of vertical content now. So that's a different kind of setup for the script. So it's very useful for me to still be out there auditioning to get, first, I guess, to experience from firsthand what's going on in the industry. So, yeah.
So the cool thing is that you kind of like made this for yourself, and then eventually it became something that could help a lot more people, which is usually how great companies are started.
Yes, pretty much. Danny was like, I can't be a reader anymore because he was my reader before.
Yeah, I mean, in part, I mean, part as a joke, but also in reality, it did come up like that, the idea. Like neither of us were in the tech field before this, but we both really liked it. And in fact, Jamila's first career in college, when she went to college, was for computer science.
Right.
And I'm a musician, so nowadays musicians, besides our instrument, we're always dealing with computer software.
Yeah, of
So
course.
it's like part of the daily thing. But it did start kind of like that. Like, what can we do? Because a lot of times, especially during the pandemic, when it was harder to meet with friends and all of that, I would be working super late, and then when I got home, I had to be reading for Jamila, and it's a process, like you cannot do it in 2 takes. Depending on the audition, sometimes you have to do many takes, so it gets tiring for the reader as well.
Right.
So initially, we were honestly looking for an app, and we could not find it. And every actor that we would ask, they always said the same thing, like, "Oh no, I've never heard of that, but that's a great idea." So that was kind of how the seed was planted of being like, well, clearly there's a hole in the market for something like this.
So where did you two meet? How did you guys come together as a couple? Like,
Yeah. Oh, we're married, but
yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
yeah.
So we met through the industry. So,
Yeah.
as you said, I'm a singer and an actress. I do a lot of voiceover work. So and Danny's a producer and an incredible composer for TV and film. And they sent me to DreamWorks, actually, sent me to his studio to do some voices for the Trolls. And they hired him to produce the vocals because they wanted to make sure that I spoke like Spanish, and because he's a native of Costa Rica, so he speaks Spanish too. So he's like,
Yeah.
we want to make sure that whoever comes in really knows, the language. And they called in Danny for that, and that's how we met.
All
Yeah,
right.
so
So
we
who made
matched
the
up.
first move? Who made the first move?
It was me. I would say it was me.
You couldn't
And
help it. You couldn't help it.
I couldn't help it, but it was tricky too because I had to be very
Professional.
faithful because it was through a work connection. So
Yeah, of
I
course.
had to kind of like test the waters, and I didn't make a move right away. It was a few weeks after. So just to make sure that the project kind of got done and that
Yeah.
everything was wrapped up.
Oh my God, that's so funny. So funny. So how was the process of like learning the tech side of it? Like, did you guys have to reach out to a bunch of people you didn't know? Did you have people in your network that already knew how to make apps? Was that the most challenging part? Like, talk to me about that process.
Yeah.
Go ahead, go ahead.
No, I would just say for us, it was funny. We kind of equated to a casting. Like we made this app for actors where it's to help them with the castings, but we had to do our own casting process to find our team. And back then we didn't really know much, so we ended up having to meet a lot of people and get a lot of recommendations from friends of friends of friends. But we ended up assembling a team that we're super happy with. And
Right.
Jamie can expand on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was just reaching out to friends who were in tech. Also, just kind of Google. That was the first thing I remember. We sit down, we just Google, how can we build an app? And just saw the steps right there. Like, you need back end, front end, UI, UX. I was like, oh, what is this? So we just sort of started asking people, like, so what do you do first? Is it the front, the UI, UX, or you go back end first? Like, how does it work? Or like full stack? And it's kind of like, okay, I'm learning all of these, this terminology of like who I need. So it was, by the time we talked to a few people, when we found one of the people that we loved, we were kind of like, okay, now I know I can talk to this person. Like, okay, so you full stack, UI, UX, backend. Like, what's your specialty?
You
And
were a
then
pro by then, yeah.
by then, yeah. But that's all we knew. And then again, we were very lucky to find incredible people that have been so supportive. And they've been in the industry, in the tech industry, so they've also guided us along the way.
So from the moment you came up with the idea to the moment the app was live, how long did that take?
Guide that.
About almost 2 years, a little less than 2 years. But I mean, the inception of the idea was almost 4 years ago, like during the pandemic.
Yeah.
But we just kind of sat on it for 2 years because things restarted. We both had busy careers, and we just kind of went back to our, what we knew, which was our own careers, and try to get back into work and all of that. It was really 2 years later when it was very big news here in LA, but maybe Miami too. SAG, the
Yeah.
union for actors, went on a strike.
Yeah, I
And
remember.
we're both SAG members, so we knew about the strike a few months ahead because we had to vote on it. And knowing that 2023 was going to be a very challenging year for actors, Jamila was kind of thinking, okay, what can I do with all this time? And that was when it really kind of sank into us. Like,
Wow.
it feels
Great
like
time.
a sign. Like, it's like, we're going to have the time, you're going to have the focus, you have the knowledge, you've been auditioning for almost a decade by then. So let's just get into it. Like, by then, those 2 years, although we were sitting on the idea, we kept researching, we kept seeing like what is out there, what kind of technologies can we use. And that was also the boom of AI, where ChatGPT started becoming famous. We started using ChatGPT for, everyday things like asking random recipes and things like that, and started thinking like, well, this might be possible to extract dialogue only from a script and train something with machine learning. So we were already kind of putting pieces together, but it wasn't until the end of 2022, and especially right at the beginning of 2023, that we kind of kicked off and we said, let's do this.
Wow. How did it feel when you first like saw it on the App Store and people were giving you guys feedback and, people were actually downloading it? That must have been crazy.
Yeah.
We still pinch ourselves.
Right?
Yeah.
It's still a lot of work. I mean, the work is not just building the app. That's beginning. The hard part is marketing the app and getting it out there, getting people to use it, trust it, give you feedback. That part is a big challenge.
For sure. No, and also even the app, the product itself, it's very interesting because we walked into it I guess in a naive way because we're like, okay, we're gonna build this app. It's gonna take us, I don't know, this many months, almost a year to develop it, and then we'll see, and then it'll be done. We'll be done with development. The truth is, development never ends. It's like it never ends. It's like the moment you fix something here because you have a little bug, all of a sudden you have three more bugs under the rug, and you're like, oh, but those three bugs weren't there before. Okay, let's fix those three bugs, and now you have another one, and it's kind of like keeping leaks from coming into your house. I don't know, keeping the water out, I feel.
Yeah. Well, it's super cool. You guys like really do support each other on this project because it is a lot of work, but you guys do bring a lot to the table from both of your experiences. So it's really cool to have two founders that bring different flavor, different
For
sauce.
sure. I
Thanks.
always
Yeah, no,
tell Dan-
that's been.
I was gonna say I always tell Danny that I don't think this project could have been done without like the two of us and the team that we have because it's just impossible, honestly. Everybody brings something in.
Do you have any copycats yet?
There's a couple people that have come out already, and funny enough, it's clear to us that they're copycats, but most of them are not even running yet. We obviously, we try to Google and do our thing, and there's a few things that we see that we're like, is there something coming here? But
Yeah.
as of now, we're still the only ones actually in market and like functioning.
Yeah.
So,
No,
but
get ready for it. I have so many projects I've put out over the years, and it's almost laughable. Like the level the level people go. I've had my merchandise bootlegged all over the world, all types of merchandise for this podcast, and we have billions of views on all of our content. We have, for example, one of my books. Somebody literally wrote the exact same book in the exact same format, only switched the cover up a little bit. But you know
no,
what? That stuff is upsetting. But at the end of the day, it's kind of cool because like they're like, damn, that's a good idea. I should have done that shit. But they didn't. They didn't do it first. So it's kind of it's they're honoring you in a way, even though it's a little bit upsetting. And you're
It's
leading
true.
the way. You're leading the way on something like that. The hardest part about being a creative and always pushing forward is always being at your top when it comes to innovating, right? As long as you keep innovating, you continue to be on top. So, and it also does benefit you sometimes, even though some people think it doesn't. It does benefit you when other people jump into the industry and do something similar because it grows your category, right? Because even if
True.
somebody's using a
Yeah.
competitor, right, which you're like, damn, they're taking up market share, they're actually growing the category. And then if they're not, if their needs are not being met, then your platform can meet those needs perhaps, and you could steal that market share back. So it's really cool to see, and it's really cool to see what other people will do with it, and it'll help just the category grow in general. And there's a lot of changes going on in film. Like I myself have been in the industry for some time. I'm completely blown away by the stuff that's going on with AI, with not only with ChatGPT, but with what's going to happen with video editing, what's going to happen with even just eventually. I don't even know if us humans are going to be necessary for film, because it's just going to be so easy to come up with stuff. And like I think our jobs and what we do on a daily basis is it's not gonna become obsolete, but it's gonna morph into something different. And it's gonna morph into something that gives us so many tools to do so much more than that we thought we could. But if we don't educate ourselves with all of these things that are coming out, such as ChatGPT, such as your app, right? Then we're gonna fall behind. So the people that think they have it all figured out, those are the people that are going to be in trouble. So it's really cool to see you guys are on the cutting edge of what's going on here, because when I was growing up, I loved the entertainment industry. I did castings, I did auditions, I came out on commercials. I've been in the industry for some time, but it was always like, oh, you got to go to LA, or the people that would end up in New York, right? So now with this, it's like, oh my God, you could do so much. But Amila, what you were saying is also the energy of the room, the energy of walking in a room with people and letting them feel your essence and like how you deliver, like that's a completely different thing. So I do get the cons, but having more tools under your belt doesn't hurt. If you could travel, you travel. If you could, use the app, you use the app. Use what you got. You make do with what you have.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
No,
No,
yeah.
and on that AI subject, I was just gonna say, I refuse to think that we're gonna be replaced by AI as actors. I think it's gonna be its own genre. That's just what I think.
Yeah,
But I do
yeah.
understand, and I am as concerned as you are too. And yeah,
I think
I
we're
do think we're gonna be replaced.
I think we're gonna be in a pickle when it's so good that you can't tell the difference. So you're gonna be like, oh yeah, I want to support actual humans, but damn, this show's so much better, and it could create 50 seasons for me in one sitting, with 50 different endings, or I could continue with this character not dying, like all these things that could happen. I can't even imagine what it's gonna be like.
No,
I
it will
like
be very interesting to see for sure. And I think the one thing that artists, both like actors and also musicians and people like that, have is the persona outside of the produced media, which is
yeah,
something that is the edge that real humans, I think, at least for now, will
yeah,
have on top of the AI creation, is that kind of connection that when you think of an actor, is not just their project, but also how they relate to their fans and all that stuff. And that's probably the edge that humans will have to capitalize on, right? But I
right,
totally agree with you that it will get to a point where we can design our own shows with a couple of prompts
yeah.
and watch exactly whatever we want. But hopefully there will be a human element to it still by having to have a connection with the real world.
How long do you guys think it's gonna be before it's like close to that? I'd say like in 15, probably 12, 15 years, where it's like something that actually looks good and it could be created from a prompt.
Well, I
'Cause
think
it's growing too fast. In the
Yeah,
last
it's
like
too
2 years,
fast.
it's been
I
growing like
think 10 years is quite a bit. I think it
yeah,
might be less than that. Just
sir,
the
yeah.
way it's moving so quickly. And
yeah,
that's one point that actually is good that we kind of segue into that, because we went to a big AI conference in San Jose, California,
yeah,
earlier this year, and we saw a lot of the things that have been advancing. And part of why we wanted to create Rafy was because a lot of the things that are being created visually are just to replace actors. Like there's so many companies working on avatars and people that can be like a virtual host for a show or a virtual interviewer or something like that. And obviously there is a market for that, and there will be, no matter what we do.
Yeah.
But we wanted to position Rafy as the best friend of the human actors. So we see it more as a software company, the way there's software companies for musicians, and we use it all the time, because actors have been lagging behind in that world. There's, like you were just saying, there's so much technology for video editing, for music. Even writers have software where they can write and it like makes it look nice like a script and all of that. But somehow actors, being such a big group in our industry, have been completely left behind of the technological conversation. It's just everybody just thinks of actors as a piece of paper and they say their lines. But there is a lot that technology can do to make their lives easier, especially when they are being forced to do a lot of it on their own without any help, which is what's happening with self-taping. So the way we see Rafy is to kind of always focus on what can we do to make actors' lives easier and make actors' lives more modern, allow them to do it from their homes, from when they're traveling, maybe clean up the audio so that if there's a truck or an ambulance passing by, we have a good algorithm that can take that away. So things that are like using technology to help the actor, but we're not thinking of touching anything that would be replacing the actor.
Correct.
And that's kind of why we're positioning Rafy right there in that middle.
I really like that new technology, or maybe it's not necessarily new, maybe it's been around for a while, but it's new to me, where you could keep, like, if you're reading like off a teleprompter or script, you could keep the eye in the same spot. That's
super cool.
That's crazy. I've tried to use a few of them, but the problem I've run into some of them is that, or all of them, at least until a few months ago, was that when you go to export the clip, it only lets you export in 1980 by 1920 by 1080. So if you're doing like a 4K clip, you're screwed. Like you can't use it. And I do a lot of 4K stuff. So I mean, look, many creatives like ourselves struggle with self-doubt, right? Like starting an app, is it going to work? Are people going to like it? Especially when you're moving into uncharted territories, like something you guys were doing. You guys know entertainment, but maybe apps wasn't something that you were very brushed up on. How did you both navigate the doubts or fears during this transition?
I think doing something with a partner helps a lot, because when I doubt myself, I have Danny, and then he comes up and he's like, no, it's gonna be fine. And when he's doubting something, I come around and I'm like, no, it's gonna be fine, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like that's been very, we've been very fortunate to have it in this process.
And especially you guys are married, so like you guys could share like real feelings and your like real challenges, because what better
100%.
communication would you have than with your spouse, you know?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, it's
not a walk in the park.
No, it's not a walk in the park, exactly. And there will be moments where we both have doubts on how to proceed with something. So, I think it's part of the risk of starting something in a new, like I said, in an uncharted territory, is having to really inform ourselves and learn a lot and be very humble in that sense, to know that if we don't know something, instead of just guessing and going in a random direction, we should take a minute to inform ourselves a little bit, or at least look for someone that knows and has been there before, which is what we've been trying to do, so that we, try to keep it cohesive with our vision and everything.
Nice. Okay, so who were the key supporters behind this whole thing, besides you guys, of course? Did you have mentors? Did you have people within your team, within your family, that were pushing you along the way and influenced that journey?
Well, I feel like we both have incredibly supportive parents, so that helps for sure. But for a very long time, we kept Rafy a secret, like even from our parents. It was just like something that we were working, because we weren't sure if it was going to work out. We didn't know, like, again, because we're first to market. We knew the technology existed in different ways, but not combined. Right. So we weren't sure if this was gonna be a thing or not. So we tried to, we kept it in between us. But we do have to say that Apple was an incredible mentor to us. Apple was, Danny, if you want to elaborate on that.
Apple as a company.
Yeah, Apple as a company has been, I would say, yeah, you're right, probably the biggest mentor to us. And that was completely unexpected. We don't have any kind of official partnership, but when you build an app, even when you have just like a first version, you have to submit it to the App Store just for a review, and then you can schedule a couple of calls where they can explain you what errors have happened. A lot of those are like technical things, like your login window is getting lost somewhere or whatever. But we presented our app, and we got an email from the team at Apple saying that they really liked the idea and they wanted to hear more about it. And this was more than a year ago, and it developed into somewhat of a partnership without really any like economic investment or any sort.
Right.
But we've been flown to Cupertino. We've shown them the app. We've worked with their developers. In fact, they gave us access to people that work at Apple to help us with our UI and everything. And it's something that we're very fortunate, because we learned throughout the process that it's not common.
I hadn't heard of that before.
They do it very
in the app world, but for Apple to bring you out, like, pretty big deal.
And now a little bit later, we've realized why, and kind of like the reasons of it is it's Apple has been very important in the entertainment industry for many years. Everything from editors to musicians to all kinds of stuff. But now with the development of AI and their own system called Apple Intelligence, there's been a lot of fighting and a lot of concern from the entertainment industry, precisely what we were just talking about, of all these technological advancements replacing the artists and the people behind painting, design, and everything else.
Yeah.
And because we kind of aligned ourselves in a way that we're trying to use this technology just to empower the artist instead of replacing the artist, and that was kind of in our pitch that we had always included in the app.
Right.
Apple really resonated with that, and they thought we would be a good company to support in that sense. So they have given us access to a lot of things, and that has been obviously very helpful, because it also allows our own engineers to have like a very direct rapport with them in case we got to develop something that is difficult. And we've definitely had those issues, like with audio and video and all the things that our app demands that needed some specific technical guidance.
What's super cool is that like this company has opened up so many doors for you guys that you probably wouldn't have knocked on before. You would probably move within that ecosystem, right? And you would probably like know similar people. But the fact that you have a business within this world now that does help other people like you, it opens up so many doors for collaborations, to meet other people, potential investors, potential people that are going to add to the business. Like, it just opens up a whole new world while not taking you out of the world you want to be in, right?
Correct.
Daniel, you want to be in music, you want to be acting, you don't, you still love that. And that's, I want to go there next, right? There's a lot of roles here. You're an actor, you're a musician, entrepreneur. How do you each manage balance across your passions and responsibilities? And what advice would you give to others juggling multiple creative pursuits?
Well, I think we think of it in terms of a right here, right now, and what are the priorities today, for example. I can't think of it as, overall. I know there's Rafy, of course, is a priority, but today, for example, I have this voiceover session that I need to show up to. So, okay, that's number one priority today. And then for the rest of the day, I'll work on Rafy, on everything else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I feel
I
I
get
have
you
this
100%.
audition. So today I have to do this audition. So, okay, I'll use Rafy it's great because now I get to work on both at the same time, testing it as well. And then I'll get my audition done too. So I feel like I think of it as like, what's today? What's the priority right now?
I could relate so much because I have a lot of things going on. Like, my main business is a marketing agency. I've been doing that for a little bit over 10 years now. I'm running it out of Florida. But I have a podcast, I have a magazine, I have another media outlet, I write books. So sometimes it's like people ask me, like, how do you juggle? And it's like, well, I tackle what's in front of me, right? So like you just said, if you have an audition, I tackle the audition, I get off and handle the rest. So it's a matter of, I guess, time blocking and time management, also having a good team, having good communication. At least for me, when I run a lot of the stuff, like for example, if I was you and I was running Rafy, I'd likely be at auditions or in studios recording, and I would have my WhatsApp with my team in it, developers or whoever, and just going crazy on WhatsApp, having them manage it, because you could do so much. You can move mountains through WhatsApp while in another meeting. So it's, that's the beauty of the world we're living in right now.
Exactly. I think that's a good point. And also that's why whenever we wanted to do this, we thought this is a good business for us, because it's a business that outside of customer service, which I would say customer service is something that does require more of an urgency. Everything else can be on our own time. We're on our own schedule. We have our goals and we want to meet them, but we can work at midnight or we can work at 10 in the morning. It really doesn't matter at what time we put the hours. And that works really well with our careers, because that kind of allows us to do what we have to do.
Yeah.
And then fill up gaps, and even, like you said, like multitask during the day, but dedicate times almost at our own disposition, because our own time, which is unlike, for example, if we were running a restaurant at the same time as trying to be a musician, which is, I mean, it's a business too, but that's something that exactly, because you know at 8 in the morning people are going to show up and you have to be there. Rafy, most of the time we can work at whatever time we want, so that allows us that flexibility, which I think is very important.
Yeah, beautiful thing too is while you're sleeping, you could have an overseas team helping you out with customer service or tech stuff, which gives you peace of mind when you're sleeping. There's businesses where people don't have peace of mind when they're sleeping. One of the things I do with my businesses, and I do have an overseas team, and we technically operate 24 hours a day. So while I'm sleeping, we get another 8 hours of work in, and that makes me feel a whole lot better when I wake up and right before I go to sleep.
Yeah, exactly. And we definitely have some overseas as well. And it works really well because of that. Because sometimes we wake up to a new version of the app, and that's great.
Yeah, that's super cool. Now, I wanted to go over one more thing. This is a question that I usually ask everyone on the podcast. So I'll give you guys a chance to answer it individually. And it's, how do you want to be remembered?
Oh, me first?
Yes.
You first, Danny.
Ladies first.
Oh, ladies first. Okay.
No, Danny, go first. If you want to think about it, then you could go first.
Sure. Yes. Well, I mean, music has been always the main thing in my life. And when I mean always, it's always. My parents are both professional musicians. So I was born in a musical house. And kind of music has been the inevitable career for me in a way. Like I never really considered anything else almost. So I would say that I do want to be remembered for my music, my scores. I do a lot of scores for film and TV. Nice. And you know, I've had some TV shows, and currently I'm working on a movie. So ideally, you know, being remembered for at least a couple of the movies the way I know many composers would be fantastic. But it's also a very niche market, and even the most famous composers, I mean, John Williams, Hans Zimmer, like more people know who they are. But still not everybody. Like someone on the street might not even know who they are, and that's totally okay with me. So I don't expect, you know, ever the name recognition of an artist like, I don't know, Lady Gaga or something like that. That's completely not important to me. But kind of recognition within my field would be amazing. And then Rafy has now become something that I would say is almost hand by hand. I would love to have, you know, this instrument be remembered as like the first thing that happened to actors in technology, which is kind of crazy, but there is no technology for actors. So something that really helps them in their career and kind of brings them up to the 21st century.
Yeah, I think that's a great one. I think those both points that you just hit, not only like your personal career, but also the tool that you've built, the technology that you've built, will live on as well. So great stuff.
Yeah. Well, I want to be remembered as a doer. I love doing, and I really relate to being a doer. So I want to be remembered as an actor, as a entrepreneur, as co-founder of Rafy. So like everything that I put my mind into that I do, I want to be remembered as that. And and that kindness is really important to me. So I would love to be remembered as someone kind who cared about other people and other people's feelings and needs. And that's where Rafy was born. And that's where I would love to take Rafy in the future too. I would love to give things to our community that haven't been given to us yet. Because when you're an actor, you're only someone when you're someone. But when you're no one, you're no one. There's nothing in between. And a lot of us are in the in-between. So I want to give to the in-between, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. Now, last question. How'd you guys pick the name?
Oh, fun. So, there's like basically two schools for picking names for an app. It could be something like, oh, what the app does, like scene partner or scene mate, or a completely different name like Uber or Etsy, that doesn't really tell you what they do. So we went the other route because we wanted a name of a person that sounded like the name of a person, because a reader is a person. And we wanted it to be genderless. We wanted it to be kind of ambiguous.
Yeah.
So
You
yeah,
pronounce it in many languages. Yeah.
it could be
That was
exactly.
the other thing I was gonna
That
say.
was the
The
other
problem
thing.
we had with something like scene mate or reader buddy or something like that is that it wouldn't translate well to many languages. And we always envision Rafy as a multi-language, not only Spanish, but everything, Swedish, Korean, you
Yeah.
name it. So we wanted a name that doesn't really mean anything, but is easy to pronounce and easy to remember in multiple languages.
Yeah, you'll give it the meaning. Yeah. Yeah.
Right, that could become like a verb. Like, oh, I'm gonna Rafy that. I'll Rafy that audition.
Yeah, yeah.
Rafy your audition?
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. I don't need a reader. I'll Rafy it.
But
Yeah.
it is an acronym, and that's where it came from. It came from the acronym Reader App for You. Rafy, Reader App for You.
Oh, shit. You guys thought about it all the way through. Good.
we don't use that as an acronym.
Yeah.
Right,
It's a little tacky, but that's where it came from. We were
Yeah.
trying to play with words that were like, what about Reader App Ra, this, and then we ended up with Rafy.
Cool. Now, where can we connect with you guys through Rafy and individually, you both?
Absolutely. Well, social media, Instagram, TikTok. I am Jamila Hache, JAMILAHACHE. And Rafy is Rafy.app.
Yeah. And for me, I'm D Rojas Music. So it's just DROJAS Music on Instagram. And Rafy app, it's everywhere. I think it's Instagram, TikTok, all over the place.
Listen, y'all, everything we discuss here today, we're going to link it on the show notes of the episode on wherever or whatever platform you're listening to. You'll find it there. Or you could go to hustleinspireshustle.com/podcast and find the episode. You'll find it there, and you'll also find their social media so you could connect. Guys, it's been a pleasure. Jamila, Daniel, founders of Rafy. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully, this is not the last time we have you guys on. I can imagine you guys are going to do incredible things, and I can't wait to see what else we come up with.
Thanks so much, Alex. Appreciate the time and the talk.
All right, y'all. God bless.